The first thing that hit me wasn't the wine. It was his voice. "Don't make this ugly." Caleb stepped into my space like he owned it. Too close, breath warm with alcohol. The lights above us were dimmed, low-expensive bulbs casting everything in gold, the kind of lighting that hides flaws, the kind families use when they want to pretend. I was holding a bottle I'd saved for a milestone. Thick glass, heavy. I hadn't even finished saying hello. Then the wine came, cold, violent. Red exploded across my face and chest. It burned my eyes, soaked into the pale fabric of my dress, dripped down my wrists. The smell hit next oak alcohol metal. Someone laughed, not loud, just enough. Caleb didn't flinch. He dropped the empty glass on the counter and said, "That's what happens when you don't know your place." That was the second something in me snapped. Behind him, my parents stood near the island. My father's fingers still curled around his tumbler. Ice clinked once as he shifted his grip. My mother's mouth tightened. No shock, no anger. Just calculation. "This dinner is for family," she said calmly, "not for scenes." I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, red smeared across my skin. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. The music kept playing soft jazz too polite for what had just happened. If you've ever had family treat you like you're invisible until they need something, like your pain is an inconvenience, take a second. Like the video. Subscribe. Because stories like this don't start with villains. They start with silence. People mistake for weakness. I set the bottle down slowly. "I paid for everything here," I said. Caleb scoffed. "There you go again. Flashing money like it makes you important." I looked at my parents. I waited. Not for an apology. Just for one of them to say my name the way you say it when you mean it. My father cleared his throat. "You didn't have to go all out like this." That one landed. Quiet. Precise. I nodded once. My hands were steady now. That scared me more than the shaking had. I stepped away from the island and walked toward the hallway. The floor was cool under my heels. Somewhere behind me, a dishwasher hummed to life. Plates clinked. The sound of normalcy trying to swallow what had just happened. Caleb followed. "Don't be dramatic," he said. "You always do this. Always." I stopped near the window. Outside, the patio lights glowed against the dark. Guests moved in clusters, wine glasses raised unaware or unwilling. I pulled out my phone. The screen lit my face. One click to unlock, another to dial. My mother's voice sharpened. "What are you doing? I'm calling someone," I said. "For God's sake," she snapped, "don't embarrass us." That was the first time she used us instead of him. I turned back toward them. Wine still dripping from my hair onto the floor, my dress ruined, my chest tight. "Caleb threw a drink in my face," I said evenly. "In my house." My mother laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You're exaggerating." Caleb smirked. She leaned into it. That was when the front door opened. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside. Their boots were quiet on the hardwood. Too quiet. Conversation stalled mid-sentence. The music kept playing for a few seconds too long, then someone rushed to turn it down. The room changed shape. "I'm the homeowner," I said before anyone else could speak. My voice surprised me. Flat? Clear? There was an assault and people here who are refusing to leave. My mother gasped like she'd been struck. "This is unbelievable." One of the officers looked at me. "Ma'am, can you show proof of ownership?" I turned my phone toward him. "Digital deed. My name. My company. Sole owner." He nodded once. Caleb's smile slid off his face. "This is insane," he said. "She's emotional." The officer didn't look at him. "Sir, I need you to step back." My father stepped forward instead. "Officer, this is a family misunderstanding." The other officer shook his head. "Property law isn't a misunderstanding." I felt it then. Not relief. Something colder, like a switch being flipped deep inside my chest. My mother's eyes locked on mine. "You're really doing this?" "Yes," I said. Caleb laughed again, louder this time. "You always think you're better than us." He reached for another glass. The officer moved faster. "Don't. Too late." Caleb swept his arm across the bar. Bottles shattered. Crystal exploded. Red flooded the floor like a spill no one could clean fast enough. "You'll regret this," he shouted. Hands grabbed him. Firm, professional. He cursed. My father shouted his name. My mother screamed mine. "Stop," she yelled. "You're tearing this family apart." I watched the mess spread across the hardwood. I felt nothing. Guests were asked to leave. Coats were grabbed. Heels slipped. No one met my eyes. 15 minutes passed like a held breath. When the door finally closed behind them, the house went still. An officer handed me paperwork. "You handled yourself well," he said. I nodded. They left. Their headlights swept once across the walls, then disappeared. I stood alone in the kitchen. The dishwasher clicked. Steam hissed softly inside. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. That's when I heard her, my mother's voice low and tired cutting through the quiet. "You've always been like this," she said, "so eager to prove you matter. The first time they told me to leave, there was no shouting. That's what people get wrong. There was a kitchen table, morning light, coffee already poured, my bag by the door, like it had always belonged there. I was 21. I'd stayed up all night finishing a portfolio, hands cramped, eyes burning. When the acceptance email came in, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I read it twice to make sure it was real. A top program, full immersion. The kind you don't get unless someone finally sees you. I walked into the kitchen, holding my phone like proof of life. My mother glanced at the screen and nodded. Once, like I'd told her the weather. My father didn't look up from his mug. "That's great," he said, "but we need to talk about finances." That sentence ended everything. They sat side by side, calm, united, prepared. Like this meeting had been on the calendar. "We're cutting your support," my mother said. "You're old enough to handle yourself." I waited for the joke. None came. My father added, "Your brother needs stability right now." Caleb was 16. Perfect grades when it suited him. Trouble when it didn't. New hobbies every month. New gear paid for without question. "I can work," I said. "I already do." "That's different," my mother replied. "This program is indulgent." Indulgent. That word stuck. She pushed an envelope toward me. Inside was a list. My birth certificate. My social security card. A printed bus schedule. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," she said. That was the first something in me snapped. I moved into a room the size of a hallway. 2 roommates. 1 window that didn't fully close. I learned the sound of the building settling at night. Pipes knocking, sirens passing like they knew where I lived. I worked mornings at a cafe, afternoons at a studio that called unpaid labor experience, nights sketching by a lamp that flickered when it rained. When I called home, the conversations were short. "How's school?" my father would ask. "Busy," I'd say. "That's good," he'd reply. "Keeps you out of trouble." Caleb texted sometimes. Photos of trips, new shoes, a guitar he never learned to play. "Mom says congrats," he wrote once. No punctuation. I stopped inviting them to things. Critiques, showcases. The first time a client chose my design over someone twice my age. Silence became a habit. I learned to read contracts the way other people read faces, learned which promises weren't backed by money, learned to walk away without asking why. When rent was late, I ate noodles. When clients delayed payment, I took another job. When the city felt like it might swallow me, I walked faster. By 24, I had my first real break. A small hospitality project, tight budget, no margin for mistakes. I slept under my desk for 3 nights straight. It worked. Word traveled, quietly, the way it does when something is solid. I built my name without telling anyone. I liked it that way. My parents showed up again when there was something to show. A holiday card, a congratulatory text forwarded through Caleb, a request to catch up. We met once, neutral ground, a restaurant neither of us loved. My mother smiled too much. "We always knew you'd figure it out. Always." My father raised his glass. "See, tough love works." I didn't argue. I paid the bill. That became the pattern. They reappeared when there was a benefit, a trip, a connection, a favor framed as family time. I kept my distance, or I thought I did. Buying the house was a mistake. I told myself it was an investment, a place to breathe, a reward for years of sleeping light and carrying everything alone. When I invited them, I called it a gathering, not a celebration. I didn't want to sound like I needed anything. My mother's voice had warmed immediately. Of course we'll come. Caleb asked about parking. None of them asked how it felt to finally own something outright. Standing alone in the kitchen now, wine dried stiff on my skin, I could see the line clearly, from that morning at the table to this night on the floor. They hadn't pushed me out once. They'd been doing it my whole life. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from my mother already sent, already waiting. You didn't have to humiliate us like that. I stared at the words until they blurred. The dishwasher clicked off. Silence flooded back in. I thought about that envelope on the table years ago, the way she'd slid it toward me without looking guilty, the way I'd gathered my things without crying. I wiped my face with a clean towel and folded it neatly. Old habits. Some people remember the moment they were abandoned. Others remember the moment they stopped hoping. I stood up straight and turned off the kitchen light. Upstairs, the guest room was still made, pillows untouched. No one would be sleeping there. As I walked past, my mother's voice echoed in my head. Not from tonight, from years ago. Flat, certain. You'll thank us someday. Success didn't arrive with applause. It came quietly. In invoices paid late, in contracts signed without celebration, in mornings where I woke up already tired and went anyway. After I left that house at 21, I learned something fast. Nobody was waiting to catch me. So I stopped falling. My first real client didn't know my parents' names, didn't care where I came from. He cared that I showed up early and left last, that I listened, that I didn't flinch when the budget was cut in half and the deadline stayed the same. I redesigned a lobby that smelled like old carpet and desperation. I tore it down to concrete and built warmth from nothing, light where there had been none, texture that didn't apologize. He paid me 2 weeks late, then referred me to someone else. That's how it went. I kept my head down. I didn't post wins online. I didn't call home. I didn't announce anything that could be minimized. By 25, I was booking months out. By 27, I stopped taking unpaid work. By 30, people started saying my name like it meant something. My parents heard about it secondhand. An aunt mentioned a magazine feature at Thanksgiving. My mother smiled like she'd known all along. We always said you were ambitious, she told someone else, not me. Caleb asked if I could take a look at his friend's place. Free advice, quick opinions. He never said thank you. When I said no, he laughed. Wow, money really changed you. That was the third something in me snapped. I learned not to correct them. Correcting invites debate. Debate invites control. So I let them believe whatever made them comfortable. I bought the house because I could. That was the only reason. A hill just far enough from the city to breathe. Clean lines, big windows, silence that didn't feel empty. I signed the papers alone, sat in my car afterward and didn't tell anyone for 3 days. Ownership felt heavy, real, undeniable. When my mother found out, her voice shifted. Oh, she said, that's impressive. Then lighter. It'll be nice for family gatherings. There it was. The house stopped being mine the moment she imagined herself inside it. I hesitated before inviting them. I knew better. But there's a specific kind of hope that only comes from old wounds. The kind that says, maybe this time will be different, because now you've done enough. I told myself it was neutral. A dinner. Nothing more. My mother took over the guest list without asking. My father suggested wines. Caleb asked if he could bring friends. None of them asked what I wanted. I paid anyway. The night of the dinner, I watched them move through the space like it had always belonged to them. My mother rearranged flowers. My father criticized the lighting. Caleb opened cabinets, testing limits. I stayed calm. I stayed polite. I told myself it didn't matter. Then the wine hit my face. Standing in the quiet aftermath now, I saw it clearly. The pattern. The rule I'd broken. I had succeeded without permission. In our family, success was allowed only if it could be explained away. Luck, help, timing, anything but competence, anything but independence. They could tolerate my struggle, They could even brag about it. They couldn't tolerate my ownership. That's why the night turned, not because of a drink, because of what it represented. After the police left, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Missed calls, voicemails, texts that switched tones every few minutes. My mother tried reason. My father tried authority. Caleb tried anger. You embarrassed us. You overreacted. You always think you're better. I didn't respond. Silence had become my language long before this. Tonight it just sounded louder. I changed out of the ruined dress and folded it carefully into a bag. Evidence or memory? I hadn't decided yet. When I came back downstairs, the house felt bigger, emptier, mine again. That's when I noticed it. My mother's tablet, left charging on the bar like she'd expected to come back for it. I stood there for a full minute before touching it. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. The screen lit up at my fingerprint. She'd never bothered changing access. Why would she? In her mind, nothing here was private. The messages were still open. Threads stacked neatly. Dates. Names I recognized. Plans, not assumptions, not misunderstandings. Plans. Dinner is at her place. She's covering everything. If she gets emotional, Caleb can handle it. She won't make a scene. She never does. I scrolled slowly. There was one from my father to someone I didn't know. Big house, great wine, zero cost to us. Another from my mother that made my chest go cold. She needs to be reminded she's not above family. I didn't cry. I took screenshots, every one, clean, methodical. That was the fourth something in me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically. It clicked, like a lock closing. I put the tablet back where it had been, plugged in, innocent. Then I sat down at the island where my mother had stood hours earlier and breathed once. Deep, controlled. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was documentation. I opened my laptop and started a folder. Dates, times, files labeled clearly. I saved the police report number from earlier, cross-referenced it. I didn't feel angry. I felt organized. My phone buzzed again, a voicemail notification. I listened this time. My mother's voice came through tight and strained. "You've made your point," she said. "We can talk tomorrow. Talk." That word had been used my whole life to mean surrender. I deleted the message. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked. The sound was steady, impatient. I stood up, turned off the lights one by one, and headed upstairs. For the first time, I didn't wonder if I'd gone too far. I wondered why it had taken me so long. As I reached the top of the stairs, my phone vibrated again. One final message slipped through before I blocked the number. From my mother. Short, unfiltered. "Don't forget where you came from." I stopped walking. Then I smiled, because I finally understood. They weren't afraid of losing me. They were afraid I didn't need them anymore. The truth didn't arrive all at once. It surfaced the way rot does, slow, quiet, undeniable once the smell reaches you. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was shaken, because my mind was already moving. By morning, the house felt different, not violated, clarified. Sunlight slid across the floor, catching shards of crystal the cleaners had missed. A faint red stain near the bar, scrubbed, but not erased. Proof lingers even after effort. I made coffee and didn't sit down. The tablet was still where I'd left it, battery full, screen dark, waiting. I picked it up again, not with anger, but with purpose. The messages went deeper than I'd seen the night before. Threads branched, group chats, side conversations, the kind people have when they assume the subject will never read them. My name appeared a lot, not as a person, as a resource. Her place is perfect, big enough, no venue fee. She always overdoes it, might as well let her. If she pushes back, remind her who paid for her growing up. That one was from my father. I paused there, long enough to feel the weight of it, long enough to remember the envelope on the kitchen table years ago, the bus schedule, the way he hadn't looked at me when he said it was time to be independent, paid for her. They'd rewritten history, smoothed it into something that made them generous and me ungrateful. There was a message from my mother that chilled me more than the rest. She needs to be taken down a notch. Success went to her head. Taken down. That was the plan. Not dinner, not reconciliation. Correction. Caleb chimed in later, careless and cruel. I'll spill something if I have to. She hates scenes. I stared at that line until the words lost shape. That was the moment I understood the whine wasn't impulsive. It was scheduled. My thumb kept moving, screenshot after screenshot. Cloud backup. Folder nested inside another folder. I labeled everything with dates and names. No drama, no commentary. Facts don't need adjectives. By noon, my phone rang again. Aunt Margaret. She didn't say hello. Did you eat? Yes. Good. I'm coming over. She arrived an hour later, coat still on, eyes sharp. She took in the house in silence, the mess, the quiet. I handed her the tablet. She didn't rush. She read everything. Twice. When she looked up, her mouth was set. They planned to humiliate you. I nodded. They planned to remind me. Margaret sat down slowly. You're not crazy. I need you to hear that. I exhaled once. The kind you don't realize you're holding. They'll say it was a joke, she continued. They'll say you misunderstood. They already did, I said. She nodded. That's why you don't talk to them anymore. That afternoon, we sat across from a lawyer who didn't blink. Her office smelled like paper and espresso. Clean, neutral. Dangerous in the way order always is. She reviewed the screenshots, the police report, the photos of the broken bar, the timestamps. This is intent, she said. And this she tapped the screen as conspiracy to defraud. I didn't react. How do you want to proceed? She asked. I thought about the night again. My mother's voice. Calm, cutting. You've always been like this. I want it documented, I said. I want it ended. The lawyer nodded. Then we moved quietly. Demand letter. No contact clause. Itemized damages. Emotional distress, but conservatively. Nothing exaggerated. Nothing that could be dismissed as revenge. We drafted it that evening. As we worked, my phone buzzed nonstop. My father called from a blocked number. Caleb sent voice notes. My mother switched tactics. First anger, then guilt, then concern. This is tearing the family apart. We're worried about you. You've changed. I didn't answer. Silence had stopped being absence. It was control. The letter went out the next morning. Certified, tracked, unavoidable, 10 days. That was the window. On day 2, my parents showed up, unannounced. Of course. I watched them from the upstairs landing, my mother pacing, my father knocking once, then harder, Caleb nowhere to be seen. Cowardice has patterns. I didn't open the door. My mother pressed her palm against the glass. Lauren, don't do this. Her voice cracked perfectly. Practiced. This isn't who you are, she added. I spoke through the door. You're right. She stilled. Then come talk to us. No. That word landed heavier than any insult. My father's voice rose. We sacrificed for you. I closed my eyes, counted to 3. You planned to embarrass me in my own home, I said evenly. We're done. My mother's tone shifted. Ice replaced tears. You'll regret this, she said. I believed her, but not for the reason she thought. They left after 10 minutes. Not before my mother turned once more, eyes flat now, and said the line she'd been saving. Blood doesn't forget. The door closed behind them. I leaned my forehead against the wood and laughed once. Short, dry. Blood remembers what it's owed. 3 days later, the first crack appeared. A check, partial, accompanied by a note written in my father's handwriting. Let's not escalate. I slid it back into the envelope and returned it unopened. On day 7, my mother called Margaret. Crying. Real this time. She's destroying us, she said. Margaret's response was calm. No. She's documenting you. On day 10, the full amount arrived, certified, silent. The lawyer called. They want a meeting. No, I said. Good, she replied. We'll file the agreement as final. That night I stood in the kitchen again. Same place, different weight. The tablet sat in a drawer now, the files locked away, evidence sealed. I poured myself a glass of water, clear, cold. In the reflection of the window I looked older, straighter, like someone who'd stopped waiting for permission. My phone buzzed once more. A message from my mother sent too late. You didn't have to ruin everything. I typed nothing back, because the truth had already done that, and it didn't need my help. The check cleared on a Thursday. No fireworks, no apology attached, just numbers moving from one account to another, clean and final. I watched the confirmation screen for a few seconds longer than necessary, then locked my phone. That was it. No relief washed over me. No victory rush. Just a quiet sense of alignment, like a bone finally set after years of walking wrong. The lawyer filed the agreement the same afternoon. No contact clause. Permanent, clear. Any violation meant consequences they couldn't talk their way out of. When she called to confirm, her voice was neutral, professional. It's done. I thanked her and ended the call. I didn't call anyone else. That night, I walked through the house alone, slowly. Not inspecting for damage, there was none left but for attachment. I touched the edge of the dining table where my mother had stood correcting the placement of the flowers, the bar where Caleb had laughed before shattering crystal, the doorway where my father had said nothing and meant everything. None of it held me anymore. Somewhere between the police report and the demand letter, the house had stopped being a symbol. It was just an asset now. Wood, glass, square footage. I slept better than I had in years. 2 days later, my mother broke the silence. She didn't call. She didn't text. She sent an email. Subject line, "Please." That single word told me everything. She had run out of angles. I opened it, read it once, didn't reread. She wrote about family, about misunderstandings, about how things got out of hand. She used the word hurt 3 times and never once mentioned the wine, the messages, or the plan. At the end, she wrote, "I forgive you." I smiled, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. I archived the email. Forgiveness, I'd learned, was just another way she tried to stay in control. If she forgave me, she didn't have to face what she'd done. I wasn't interested in that trade. The house went on the market the following Monday. People assumed it was emotional, that I couldn't stand the memories, that I was running. They were wrong. I was consolidating. The offers came fast, faster than expected. Location, design. A little scandal whispered by agents who pretended they didn't know the story. I chose the cleanest deal. No contingencies, no conversations. 30 days later, I signed the papers and handed over the keys. I didn't look back. I moved into a smaller place downtown, concrete floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, nothing ornamental, everything intentional. The first night there, I ate takeout on the floor and felt lighter than I ever had in a fully furnished room. My phone stayed quiet. Caleb tried once. A new number. One message. "You happy now?" I blocked it without reading the rest. My father never reached out again. My mother tried one last time through a relative. A message passed like a note slid under a door. "She's still your mother." I didn't respond. Because the truth was simple, and simplicity doesn't need defense. Some people don't lose you because you're cruel. They lose you because you stop accepting the role they wrote for you. Months passed. Work expanded. Clients trusted me more than before. I noticed it in the way meetings changed, fewer explanations, more listening. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. The night before my birthday, I received a package. No return address. Inside was an old photo. Me, maybe 8 years old, standing between my parents, my smile wide, expectant. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, "We were happy once." I stared at it for a long time, then I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. Not as a reminder, as a record. I poured myself a drink that night. Water, clear, cold. I stood by the window and watched the city move. Lights on, lights off. People living their lives without needing my permission. For the first time, I didn't wonder if I'd been too harsh. I wondered why I'd waited so long. There are stories where the ending is reconciliation, where everyone learns something and hugs in a clean kitchen under warm lights. This isn't one of those stories. This is the kind where the ending is quieter, where no one apologizes the way you deserve, where you don't get closure from them. You get it from yourself. The last message I ever received from my mother came weeks later. Short, sharp, unfiltered. "You'll regret cutting us off." I deleted it, because regret only comes when you doubt your decision. And I didn't. I didn't forgive them. I didn't need to. I chose myself, and that was enough.